By now, you've probably heard about the Domino. It's made by Festool. It works a lot like a biscuit joiner, but it does something totally different. It cuts deep mortises for really strong tenons and rock-solid joinery. If you can afford one of these, you can put together serious, well-built furniture in minutes. It's pretty amazing. The Domino actually comes in two sizes. There's the 500 and the 700, also called the XL, which prices out at a whopping $1,250, about $400 more than its little brother. But I think if you're in for $800, you might as well go all in, bite the bullet, and go for the bigger, deeper, more serious joinery that the XL can produce. You can actually buy all your tenons from Festool in a variety of sizes. Here's the biggest tenon that the Domino 500 can make mortises for. And here's the biggest tenon that the XL can handle. If you put 2 or 3 of these in a row, you'll have more than enough strength for a big dining table, a beefy workbench base, or almost any job requiring big, thick, serious joints. At the low end of the XL's range are these 5/16 inch tenons, which will be perfect for the cabinet doors I'll be building in this video. But you don't have to buy your tenons from Festool, you can make your own from any hardwood. So how does this machine really work? Well, for one thing, it's all in metric, but that doesn't really matter. For these small cabinet doors, I'm going to go with the smallest bit in the XL's arsenal. That's the 8mm bit. The machine pops apart really quickly, and the bit screws on just as fast. Now I grab the 8mm tenons that match. I'm going to go with the 80mm length, so I'll just set the depth stop to half that distance, 40mm. Now I'm going to set the wobble. When the Domino cuts, the bit actually oscillates back and forth. And you can set that wobble either small to fit the tenons precisely, or give yourself a little bit of side-to-side wiggle room. Most of the time, you want to use the most precise setting, and that's what we're going to do on our cabinet doors to make sure the workpieces end up aligned perfectly. But there are other times when you want to use that extra wiggle room, like when you're doing a whole entire row of tenons like these, and you want that extra wiggle room so every single mortise doesn't have to match its mate perfectly. Now, to align the mortises on our door frame parts, I could just line up the parts and make tick marks across them, and then just line up the machine with those tick marks like a biscuit joiner. But the Domino has a really cool feature for these situations. You just pop out these built-in stops and use the one you need. They set the distance from the end of a workpiece. Now here's a really important tip for this tool. You must use dust collection. A small shop vac hose attaches easily to the tool. Without dust collection, chips will get packed inside the mortise, the bit will get jammed, and the machine will start to wobble. The one small downside with the XL is that it cuts its mortises about 5/8 of an inch above the base of the machine. That could cause a problem on, say, 3/4 inch stock, but there's a simple solution. You can just raise your workpiece a little bit, in this case with a 1/4 inch piece of MDF, and that'll effectively center the mortises on the thickness of the stock, more or less. Just make sure that you have the same reference face of your stock down at all times as you cut all your joints. Clamp down the workpiece. Line up the machine using those stops. And just let the bit cut at its own pace. Let's cut all the mortises in the rails first. Now I can tackle the mortises in the corresponding styles. Notice how I'm using the stop on both sides of the bit. Don't worry, the spacing is exactly the same. Well, that's it. All our mortises are done. Now I've got to make the slot for the door panel, and for that I need to go over to the router table where I have another cool trick to show you. I'll use a slot cutting bit on the router table. For the stiles, I'll just start in at one mortise and go all the way to the opposite one, using stop blocks to limit the travel of the workpiece. On the rails, the slot just goes right through. Glue up is just as fast. The first step is a test fit. Along the way, if you find that any of your tenons have swelled at all from humidity, maybe they're a little tight, you can just rub them on a sanding block and fine-tune the fit. Remember, with all snug-fitting tenons, like these, you only really need glue in the mortises. You can throw on a couple of clamps, and you're done. The cool thing with these dominoes is that the alignment is locked in every direction, and every key surface is flush. No stress. Now that's worry-free furniture making.